Okay, guys, so last video, let's talk about hypoperfusion or shock. Um, so, basically, in a nutshell, if you have inadequate flow of blood carrying oxygen to your organs and systems, you're going to have symptoms. Okay, so let's go back a little bit to the cardiac system. Okay, and we talked about in the cardiac system about cardiac output. So, you take your stroke volume, which is usually, 60 to 80 milliliters of blood. And that is the amount of blood that's ejected by the ventricles. That's known as the stroke volume. Now, the cardiac output is the stroke volume times your heart rate. You have to have normal cardiac output to feed all of the organs in your body. That means that when you exercise, okay, your heart rate's going to increase. So you take your stroke volumes and you times it by your heart rate, and that's your cardiac output. As you increase exercise and your heart beats faster, you're having greater cardiac output. And during exercise, muscles receive about 60% of cardiac output. The rest of the time, when you're at rest, the muscles only receive 27% of cardiac output. So what happens is if you have a drop in cardiac output, caused by a drop in volume, you're going to have tissue that is not going to receive enough oxygen. So hypoperfused tissue is going to stop working optimally. So we talked a little bit about this when I talked about the kidneys, that if you don't have enough blood going to the kidneys, you're going to stop putting out urine. And I talked about how when I would recover a surgery, that I would have to monitor. You have to put out 30 milliliters of urine. Well, some people say 20, but 30 is good to maintain the functions of life. If you're not putting out 30 milliliters, 20 to 30 milliliters of urine an hour, you're in serious trouble. So when I used to be in the PACU, especially if it was a big belly surgery or they felt like the person lost blood, I would have to keep an eye on the urine output. And if it wasn't 20 to 30, I would have to call the doctor. Now, hypoperfusion can be caused by a couple of things. It can be caused by an inadequate volume. You've lost a lot of blood. But it can also be because of the size of your arteries and veins. If you have a sudden dilation of your arteries and veins, you're going to have hypoperfusion. And the worst part of hypoperfusion is that the brain does not get the necessary blood supply, and therefore doesn't get the necessary oxygen. It can cause dizziness, weakness, fainting. It's not a good thing. And a lot of people, especially like we just talked about, orthostatic hypertension. Well, if you stand up too fast and you are hypoperfused, you're definitely going to have a problem with syncope because you're just not getting enough blood to your brain. Hypoperfusion can lead to shock, okay? Hypoperfusion can lead to shock. One of the things about shock is that when you go into shock, you're going to have increased respirations, right? Because you're going to try to get as much oxygen in. And you're also going to have an increased heart rate. So increased respirations, increased heart rate, because your body is trying to get oxygen to your brain. The other thing that happens is that you're going to it's going to start taking blood from other places in the body and diverting it because your body's going to try to protect your brain. Your brain is where it's at. When this happens, somebody who's in shock, they can have body system failures. And that's not good either, right? Usually you have to treat somebody for shock right away. I guess that's about it for that. All right, that brings us to the end of the circulatory system. Our next chapter we're going to do is hematology.